All right. You guys wanted it, a deep dive on Iran. And we're going straight to the source for this one, cracking open a Wikipedia page.
Oh, wow. Wikipedia.
I know, right? Might not sound like the most exciting deep dive material, but trust me, there's some seriously interesting stuff in here. We're talking history, geography, culture, the whole nine yards.
Yeah, it's more than just like it's more than just a country profile. It's about understanding a nation that's often misunderstood, right? Like a
Yeah.
place with a really rich history that still shapes its role in the world today.
Exactly. So let's ditch the headlines for a minute and uncover the real Iran, honestly, starting with the basics. What do we even call it? Persia, Iran.
Yeah.
Our source sets the record straight.
Yeah, I'm glad we're addressing this right off the bat. You say Persia and it kind of conjures up these images, right? Like ancient empires, exotic tales. But the name Iran, that's what its people have used for over 1,000 years. It's not just semantics. It's about identity, it's about historical ownership, something that often gets overlooked.
I feel like I totally get it. It's like calling your friend by their nickname when they've been telling you to use their real name forever.
Exactly.
For centuries. Like the Western world was stuck on Persia. Well, Iran's like, hello, we're right here.
Exactly. And understanding that disconnect, it's key to understanding how Iran sees itself.
Okay, so we've got the name down. Let's talk location. Our source kind of paints this picture of Iran as this incredibly mountainous country.
Oh, yeah. And those mountains, they aren't just there to look pretty on a postcard. They've played a huge role in shaping Iran's destiny.
Give me the short version. Like, how so?
Well, think about it. Mountains are like natural barriers, right? In ancient times, they influenced trade routes, made it harder for invaders. Even today, they give Iran a strategic advantage. It's a lot harder to, say, launch a land invasion when you've got these treacherous mountain passes to deal with.
Makes sense why Iran has such a long and kind of wild history. Speaking of history, this Wikipedia entry, it goes deep. Like all the major empires and dynasties. Honestly, there's enough here for like a whole other deep dive.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You see these empires, like the Achaemenids, ruled this vast territory from Egypt to India. Then you have the Parthians, known for their crazy military prowess, and of course the Sassanids, who were constantly clashing with the Roman Empire.
It's a lot to take in. But one detail that really stuck out to me was how the Safavid dynasty made Shia Islam the official religion. Back in the 16th century, that seems like a pretty big deal.
Oh, it was huge. It wasn't just about religion. It was about creating a distinct identity for Iran in a region that was, largely Sunni. And that decision, it still resonates today, shaping Iran's relationship with its neighbors and the world.
So we've got this picture. Country shaped by its geography, its history, and its faith. But how did that lead to the Iran we see on the news today?
That's where things get even more interesting. To understand modern-day Iran, we have to look at the Islamic Republic.
And that's where we're headed next. Okay, so the Islamic Republic. I have to admit, I don't really know much about how their government actually works. It's not exactly something we cover in, civics class.
It's definitely unique, especially compared to, what we're used to in the West. The Wikipedia page, it lays out this system where you have a supreme leader and president, but they don't really share power equally. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Who's really in charge there?
Okay, so imagine this, right? Think of it like a ship. The supreme leader, he's the captain, sets the course, makes the big decisions, foreign policy, religious matters, that kind of thing. The president's more like the first mate, I guess you could say. Handles the day-to-day stuff, but ultimately answers to the captain.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But our source, it doesn't shy away from, how do I put this? Some of the more controversial stuff about Iran's government either. There's a lot about censorship, human rights concerns.
Yeah, that's definitely something important to keep in mind. Like when we talk about understanding Iran, we can't just focus on the history, the culture. We have to acknowledge the very real challenges that ordinary Iranians are facing, under this system.
For sure. The source talks about strict control over the media, the internet. I imagine it'd be incredibly difficult to be a journalist there or an activist.
Absolutely. Like access to information, something we take for granted. In Iran, it's tightly controlled.
Yeah.
And that impacts everything from how people talk about politics to even artistic expression.
That makes you wonder,
yeah,
how much do we really know about what's going on in Iran if so much is, filtered and controlled?
That's a really good question, and it highlights how important it is to seek out different sources of information, and to be critical of what we read, what we hear, especially with a country as complex as Iran.
Now, something that really surprised me reading this was learning about Iran's economy. Like, we hear about sanctions, we hear about isolation, but this Wikipedia page, it kind of paints a different picture.
Yeah, it's easy to just focus on the negative, right? But Iran's got this surprisingly diverse economy. Sure, they're a big oil producer, but they also have a strong, like, manufacturing sector. Textiles, automobiles, things like that.
Wait, they make cars in Iran? I had no idea.
See, you learn something new every day. And before the pandemic hit, tourism was actually becoming a really big deal. Iran has, like, this incredibly rich cultural heritage. It really draws people in from all over.
Right. Our source mentions all these incredible cultural things. Mosques, palaces, gardens. Not exactly what you picture when you think of a country that's, often portrayed as closed off.
It's a side of Iran you don't always see. We get caught up on the protests, the political stuff, but there's this whole other part of Iranian society. Vibrant, creative, really rooted in tradition.
This is what I love about these deep dives, I'm telling you. You uncover these, like, unexpected layers. You start to see a country in a whole new light.
Exactly. It's about going beyond those stereotypes and really engaging with the complexities. Speaking of complexities, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Iran's role on the world stage.
Right, which leads to the million-dollar question, what's next for Iran? So we've covered a lot of ground, history, culture, politics. But where does Iran go from here? What does the future hold?
Well, the Wikipedia page, it touches on a few key things that'll likely shape Iran's future. One of them is its influence in the region. Iran's been, expanding its footprint in the Middle East, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, it seems like they're involved in so many different things happening over there. Conflicts, power struggles, it's a lot to keep track of.
Exactly. Supporting allies in places like Syria, Lebanon, while also, pushing back against rivals like Saudi Arabia. It's a balancing act for sure. And it often puts them at odds with the U.S. and other Western powers.
And then, of course, there's the whole issue of Iran's nuclear program. That just seems like a constant source of tension with the rest of the world,
Absolutely. The source, it mentions those concerns, the international community's concerns about Iran's, nuclear ambitions. It's a really complex issue. No easy answers. Iran says it's for peaceful purposes, energy production, things like that. But other countries, they worry that Iran wants to develop nuclear weapons, which would obviously, change things, especially in terms of regional stability.
It's like one day we hear about a new deal, the next day more sanctions. It's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving. You really have to, analyze it carefully, try to understand all the different perspectives.
So we've got the regional power dynamics, we've got the nuclear question.
Yeah.
Is there any room for optimism? Like, the Wikipedia entry did mention the new president.
Right. Oh, that's always a factor, right? New leadership, potential for change. Whether that happens in Iran, well, only time will tell, I guess.
Sounds like Iran's future is, full of uncertainty.
That's true for any nation, though, isn't it? The future's never, set in stone. But if we understand its past, the complexities, the forces at play, then we can better understand what might happen, the challenges, the opportunities.
This has been really insightful. Iran it's definitely not a simple place. Ancient history, modern aspirations, rich culture, political turmoil. It's a lot. I feel like I learned a ton.
That's what we're here for.
And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has piqued your curiosity about Iran. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know. That's what these deep dives are all about. Until next time.